Hello everyone, and welcome to TLDR Addiction. So today we are just a couple weeks before the election in the United States, and on the ballot in a number of states are marijuana-related initiatives. And I thought it would be useful just to take a second to break down what drug policy options there really are for marijuana in this country, because I think sometimes people think that it's either you're throwing people in jail for having like a joint on their person, or that you have to do this commercialized model, generally called legalization because that sounds a little bit better, but this commercial model where you've got these for-profit entities trying to sell marijuana and as much marijuana as possible for money, when in fact there is a lot of room in between. So on one far end of the spectrum is prohibition, which means that it is illegal, it's a crime to generally both possess and to sell a drug or to sell marijuana. That is one extreme, right? No wiggle room there at all. On the far other extreme, again, which is where we've been pivoting to as a country, unfortunately, is this free-for-all, for-profit market where private interests, companies, big marijuana, if you will, are not only helping write the laws to make as much money for themselves as possible, but there's things in there that are run directly counter to public health, things like advertising. For example, there's really no good reason to advertise for an addictive product. That's why we've seen it scale back advertising on just about every other type of addictive drug we have right now as well. But that's commercialization, again, commonly known as legalization because it doesn't sound like addiction for profit, but really what it is commercialization. Now, if we start moving towards the middle, there are options in there too. So for example, if you didn't want to go full commercialization, you could have a commercial market that is owned by the state. So instead of lobbying and the people writing the laws really trying to make as much money as they can, it could come from, say, a public health oriented place where if the state is trying to achieve certain goals through commercializing marijuana, they could do it in such a way that you can try to structure it to keep the business interests out, the national entities, things like really big money. You try to keep that out and just craft a system that minimizes harms. That's one option. If we keep going towards the middle, we could talk about just legalizing possession. You can actually legalize possession without legalizing sale. We've done that in a couple places in the country. The upshot of that is you can work on that social justice element, which, again, the social justice part, like keeping people out of jail, that does not have anything to do with selling pot for profit. That is a very different sort of thing. So you could expunge records, fully legalize possession without legalizing sale. So that is another option. Now again, if we're going one more step further towards prohibition again, is something called decriminalization. And when you decriminalize marijuana, what that means is that if you have an amount on you that's relatively small, it's not a crime whatsoever. It's kind of like a traffic violation. It's called a petty offense. So you'll get a small fine, but there's no felony, you're not going to jail, none of those things as well. So that's another option that you could do. So all of those options exist between prohibition, again, just the nothing, and the commercialization for profit, which is what we're seeing happen here in the United States. And the reason why I think this is so critical to know is that a lot of times people will look at that yes or no question on their ballot about legalizing marijuana, and they'll read things about like social justice, and they'll read things about money and all these things that honestly can usually be achieved without empowering this addiction for profit empire, honestly, that's growing across the country. So I hope this was helpful, particularly if it's on the ballot in your state. Please be informed voters and know what you're voting for. If that's what you want, if you want that industry in your state in that form, just know what you're embracing. And we do all make our own choices for our communities. I know I've been very clear that I think that I'm definitely in that middle range where there's ways to achieve the good without also recreating the mistakes of the past that we made with nicotine, and honestly in many ways with alcohol as well. So take care of yourselves, please go vote, and I look forward to talking to you all again soon.